All right, so last we left off, you all had been at Hyperia Theater watching Savvy's performance, where she had done the Moonlight Melody, and sort of you met her and her agent briefly before retiring for the evening at the Elegant Rapier, where you all discussed your next steps, as well as caught up with Lieutenant Longhole. He had been keeping an eye out for those who had replaced Francis, and heard of got some details from people who seemed to be from a place called Muhtal. You all asked literally everybody if they knew about Muhtal, just like you asked literally everybody if they knew Master Krex, and eventually decided to take a week off to wait for your guild to come online, your guild license, so that you could requisition some information from the Ventus Guild Federation. If there's anything that you've thought about over the last, between the last game and this game, that either relates to sort of information that you would have asked for about Muhtal and the Hermetic Host specifically, then we are sort of still in that research period where you're receiving that information. And if there's anything else that you sort of wanted to accomplish during this downtime, not to extend it much further, but if there's anything you're like, oh, I wish we did that, then you're still kind of in that period of time. So for starters, it is the evening of the end of the week. You guys have coordinated, I would say at this point, knowing that your license was coming in and that you had requested this paperwork. You probably coordinated where. Would it be the Tiern residence, or would it be elsewhere as a rendezvous point?
Maybe it should be we can all meet back at the Guild Federation, since we all have to end up back there.
This would be more like where you're waiting to get mail from the Federation as they're sort of assembling the paperwork for you.
Then I would say probably my family's house residence.
I think that, or it's like the Elegant Rapier or something. We don't really have a established residence or anything.
Not yet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And during, they are still setting up your guild house, and so I haven't shown you anything with that in mind yet, but you're expected that should you be leaving Consonant soon to track down the Hermetic Host, that it may be ready upon your return. But sounds like one of the two options. I'd just say the Aesop's family home, just because you don't really have any business left, I think, down in the factory precinct for now. So you might be trying to more have a night of relaxation before you head out.
Right.
Well, so I didn't really ask you guys this over Discord, but of the information that you would have asked for, what would that have been? Because a courier does come by and drops off a sort of envelope of records that you're briefly asked to sign for. But from this, I'm sort of like retroactively saying, what questions did you inquire about with regards to the Hermetic Host?
I think what type of guild are they, right? Basic information. And if I may make a recommendation, we ask about like 4 or 5 guilds at the same time type thing, so it just doesn't look like we're singling out one. That way, if anybody comes back and looks at the paperwork, well, what other ones were they looking at, type situation. Thought.
Yeah. I would certainly agree with that, and I would put the Jade Mask on that list.
Okay. I will say that if we're sort of rewinding to the previous day and you had sort of asked for all this paperwork, such a bulk order with a tight turnaround time, they would ask for a 25 gold sort of expedited fee to get all this to you.
What's the cutoff? Is it like 2, 3, 4? Like
this is for 4.
So what is it for 2? I know it defeats the purpose, but
10.
Oh, all right.
25 gold, not bad.
All right.
They just siphon money, man.
Yeah, since I came up with the idea, I'll take that out of my inventory.
So you guys just got paid, or some of you did, but
it's true.
Okay. For simplicity, I'm gonna make a note to myself that you have asked about 2 other guilds, and I'll give you some kind of like random handout about 2 random guilds in case it ever becomes relevant. But what are some questions then? And I would say that the nature of this submission is that you're probably asking the same questions about both the Jade Mask and the Hermetic Host.
Yeah.
So what are the questions that you would ask about both guilds?
Oh, good.
I was gonna say, I think type of guild, maybe like their leader, or if they have, I don't know how, like if these things have like a board of directors or, but whoever's like higher up and named on there, probably like main locations or something. I don't know what level of detail they'll provide, but if they have like recent transactions or like some sort of like tax, information or something.
Ooh, I like the tax information. Or again, just even more high level stuff is, what has the guild been known for? Because I'm sure there's kind of like adventuring guild, slew the red dragon of Avalorn or whatever, right? Like I'm sure it, or a trade guild specializes in the trade of water. I don't know.
Yeah,
so like
maybe. Oh.
Nope, that's it.
Maybe simplifying that to being like, what's the guild's purpose? With like mission statement.
There we go.
Okay.
Not corporate coming out.
Well, so let me answer these few, and then we can expand upon them with follow-up questions. So the Jade Mask is a certified government thieves guild. The nature of it on paper, I think this is something I'm going to say, is like, you're looking into the Jade Mask, who is obviously a little bit clandestine, and you're looking into the Hermetic Host, that you expect that their business is somewhat guarded. So I say that to say, both of the people you're looking into, you're not sure what to expect insofar as honesty is concerned within the paperwork. But the Jade Mask is outwardly facing known as a thieves guild. It is somewhat reflected as a diplomatic body, in that the nature of thieves, you get the impression that each town or city generally has at least one Jade Mask representative, somebody who's sort of seen as the thief of that mayor or countess or whoever is running that town. That this thief serves in a somewhat diplomatic role, both to ward off the thieving of other nobles and other leaders, as well as to be able to conduct those sorts of operations with others. Now, you haven't necessarily seen this. Your experience in Mistral doesn't necessarily reflect that, but you get the impression that like the Jade Mask, kind of like the wizards in The Witcher, if you've watched or read that, it seems like there's a nature of thieves who work for people and sort of serve in this like centralized capacity in Flamebridge, where they sort of report to each other and work together. But they're sort of doing so as well with the idea of trying to stamp out any unapproved thieving. What was it? The people who lost the Thieves Guild War in Mistral were essentially not approved in that way, and they needed to be stamped out, because if the government can't control what's being stolen, then it becomes chaos. The leader of the Jade Mask is a Nathaniel Colton, but that is the only information that you find on him.
In this paperwork, is there a sponsor? Like someone who sponsors them?
The Jade Mask is, I would say, like, what you gather is that they are paid through the various nobles that
I see.
that they're assigned to. Yeah.
Okay. And then similar question to the Hermetic Host when we get to it.
Sure. With the Hermetic Host, the leader is listed as Grajin. Is it Quickdust?
I believe.
Yeah, Grajin Quickdust, a name that you are familiar with. The nature of how the guild is shared on paper is that of a research arm, a sort of like alchemy, advanced alchemy and research for a better future sort of guild. You sort of look into the stories of what they're known for, and you actually come across sort of records of Grajin himself was cited as having invented alchemical fire, and was able to not just sort of create it in the means that you may have seen before, like sort of like almost like a Molotov or a grenade, but able to use it as a controlled flame that fueled the industrial boom within Flamebridge, being able to create persistent flame with it such that places didn't have to rely upon elemental labor, like fire elementals, serving as perpetual flame. And he was sort of instrumental in that effort, and eventually given land by Duchess Seenah, Seenah, in the Stratos Wilds to continue his research and development of new alchemical potions. So that's sort of like on paper what the Hermetic Host is sort of identified as. They are an alchemical research facility, sponsored by one of the duchies of Ventus.
Again, knowing City Watch, I'm probably not intimately familiar, but does the Duchess Seenah name ring any bells whatsoever?
Give me a history check.
Yeah, I'll take it.
Okay. She is sort of a major player in this area because Central Ventus, which is her area, spans basically all the way from Vind to Consonance. It includes Mistral and Horizon and Amthras. And so one thing that sort of triggers in your head is this must be the Duchess who has promoted Avendir to Lord of Vind. This is the very same person who has a stake in Vind as part of the duchy. You have probably seen her in very limited times, sort of like if there's any kind of procession leading to and from the castle when you've been on patrol behind the marble walls, you do know that she has an estate there, but you have never interacted with her beyond that, and nor do you have much information, I think, with a 15 about her dealings per se.
What type of humanoid?
She's a human.
I'll turn to the group upon, as we're going over the papers and the name comes up, and just kind of, I do vaguely remember, I think she might be the Duchess overall of the central area, so she may even be connected to Avendir might have information on her. Maybe even how we could contact, since we talked to everybody, we might want to just reach out.
Do you think she knows?
Who knows?
Maybe Selne saw an opportunity with him being granted such a boondockish land area and kind of took over that opportunity.
Good question. DM, Vaughn family, seen a duchy. Like
Vaughn is a noblewoman, and that doesn't, like, I think Cena would be above that on paper, but not necessarily, like, who knows what influence Vaughn has by comparison.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Thank you.
I don't know. It just seems it would be weird in my mind for her to work with Vaughn. I don't know. I feel like Cena has a lot more to lose if she were caught.
Yeah.
I'm gonna roll something for Drada that occurs to me. Maz, were you about to say something?
Yeah. How are the duchesses and whatnot related to the king? Like, is everyone related here, or?
Good question.
I would say that Aesop, do you want to roll history check as a
Studied
more,
it,
more
maybe.
worldly knowledge? Yeah, more, yeah.
Yeah.
I would say that, and Aesop, you can cite this word for word or otherwise. There's no familial relation as far as you're aware. First, because you know the king is an elf, and clearly Duchess Cena is a human. So that rules that out. As far as you understand with a 19, these are sort of based on accords that were drawn some many years ago when the monarchy came into power. Although, as far as you know, it's really just been the one king, because elves lived for quite a long time, and that this world has been divided up in such a way that that allowed people to play to their strengths. And so you imagine, to become a duchy under the king means that you're sort of offering some speciality that you're supporting. and that you have sort of experience in this area.
Mouse, I don't know if they're all totally related. Of course, I guess some of them might be. I'm not sure, but I don't know. It's just kind of decided a long time ago. It's kind of weird that they're all still in power, huh?
I mean, back home, we switch power once a year, so to be a king for that long is strange.
You switch power once a year?
Yeah, that way everybody gets a say at some point.
Wouldn't everybody be always just like really new at being a leader then? Like, you wouldn't know, I don't know, how to do it, how to do the job?
I mean, do your leaders know how they're doing their job?
Well, that's fair.
Any further questions on these two guilds?
Yeah, if the information were available, possibly the funding, a name, an organization to the Hermetic Host. I don't know if you've already mentioned that, but I know you said the land was given to them by her.
Yeah,
right?
they seem, I would say they don't seem to have a sponsor that, what of the documentation you requested, it sort of is like this land was gifted in order to fulfill this purpose, but that it's self-funded otherwise,
I see.
which does probably strike you as a little strange with regards to research. Research usually requires funding.
Yeah. Selne doesn't want to put her name in, which is fair. Clax, think of anything else we need to look through, find?
Does it give any more, like, or any specifics about the location of that land, or just land in the Stratus Wilds?
It does. You find that the way it is described is, as you're sort of sifting through this paperwork, they have a permit of secrecy, which as a means, it is justified as in order to keep their research a trade secret. They have established a protocol with the Ventus Guild Federation to check in seasonally, but that their sort of activities are not to be monitored. It does give a loose area of the territory, which is sort of like on the record because of the land that Duchess Sina had gifted. So you do know that if we head over to this other map, some of you moved to it already. I'm just going to make you all go here. If you do come to this other map, then it is just 4 days out, approximately. There are details, though, that give you pause. It says that in order to in order to protect these secrets as well, that the privacy permit also allows for certain protections to be put in place to ensure that those who are not members of the Hermetic Host cannot find or stumble upon Muhtal itself.
The thing that also I would like to point out that I guess they are required to check in seasonally, so hopefully that season isn't coming up because they would see that we just totally checked it on them.
I would say you have some what you would gauge is that it's the first of the month that they check in through those records, and you would imagine that the people who came in to replace Francis probably were part of that.
What's the date at the end of this week? I've kind of lost track of it.
It's the currently fall 20. You're on fall 27, and fall 28 is the end of the week.
Okay.
Which goes till fall 91. So.
Well, we have a location. Just these protections, they might be a little tricky.
Does it give any indication of what these protections would be, other than just certain protections, or does it give an indication that it's magical? Does it indication it's just traps?
I would say that I'm going to ask somebody to roll in order to interpret that. And I think it's probably going to be Flint. If you could roll me an Arcana check.
Sure.
Oh, okay.
+9. Wow, that's a lot. Sorry.
So, although it's not a, with the natural 20, you understand what some of the potential is, but what has been built in and around Muhtal includes what are referred to as magical beacons. The ones that they have built and procured can be programmed with either opals, topaz, or sapphire, which would be, I think it's illusion, conjuration, or abjuration magic. These magical beacons are sort of like stationary devices that can sort of be programmed to create either on trigger effects or persistent effects. And so, although you don't know what may have been programmed into them, when you think of opals being put in these, you're like, all right, well, there may be some illusions within the forest. If you think topaz, you're like, well, all sorts of things can be conjured. There's nothing in here that tells you what that might be. And then sapphire with abjuration magic, you imagine that. I'd say with a natural 20, one thing that sticks in your mind with abjuration magic for an organization trying to be secretive is an alarm system. Is that there must, and that these beacons sort of, you've never really, actually, I would say you've probably heard of them. You've never worked on them, but you've probably heard of them with regards to the Dawnbringers. These are things that can be set up on the perimeter of somewhere you want to keep secret. And I think you would recognize that an alarm system of this type, it's not just simply like the alarm spell. It is sort of something that through a network of these devices could trigger from much further away.
I'll kind of convey the high level of that to the group.
I think one other thing that you pick up, you're going through like equipment that they've sort of requisitioned. There's, as you're trying to suss out like what is it that they're making, what is it that they're doing. There's some of it is just sort of like building of facilities and refineries and things that like probably start to track with regards to the vapor production. But one thing that you see in the records is that in order to build Muhtal, they had a permit for lumberjacking in order to kind of clear some space out in the forest and to use that wood to build houses and whatnot. But you see that it's very hidden. But you're sort of seeing pieces like Iron Man being crafted in the cave at the beginning of Iron Man 1, I think, where you see something of like a big robotic iron suit that is sort of kind of like a goblin shredder in Warcraft that has been assembled to quote unquote lumberjack. But you see that and you're like, all right, well, that's a threat in and of itself.
Sounds terrifying. Absolutely terrifying.
Would it be safe to assume he has chainsaws for hands?
Some sort of saw.
Perhaps.
That's an inside joke that Sean and I know.
So suffice to say, I think you receive a packet of paperwork from the Ventus Guild Federation, and from their perspective, everything's on the up and up. It's a guild paying its dues, and that has legitimate reason to exist. But you're sort of looking with, reading between the lines a little bit, and you're like, all right, well, clearly they're protecting something. I should ask, because we've been asking these questions specifically about the Hermetic Host, but I don't know that any of these questions the questions that you've asked would necessarily apply to the Jade Mask. That you're not going to get details about their protections other than that they have jade constructs that they use to sort of support their defenses, which you've seen before.
Is there any details on like what they are and aren't allowed to do as like a thieves guild? Like, is there goods they are allowed to traffic in and ones that are like explicitly, outlawed or anything?
What you actually see, what you would have referred to as smuggling in your day, they refer to as transportation, which sort of gives you, it's almost like a carte blanche permission to do whatever they want with regards to moving things in and out of cities.
Okay, so there's no call outs of like they can or can't like deal in vapor or other.
No, there are degrees to which they are held in account to their actions, and as a Federation guild, they are required to submit reports of their dealings. And I think you see in there as well that the different nobles whom they are assigned to are also required to submit reports of the actions that they observe within each of those organizations that they're stationed at. And so there's sort of like an information network of like, you're imagining that this is how they smuggle things because it's sort of like handshakes between noble friends a lot of the time, but they're just trying to keep it on the down low.
Is in what we've acquired, is there any sort of list of those nobles or anything that do have these ties, or?
I think that would be something you'd probably have to request more specifically. Which I'm not saying that you couldn't have requested it, but they're not going to hand you like a fact sheet of every trade that has been conducted.
Yeah. We should probably do at least one like other adventurers guild just to make it seem like we're checking up on our competition.
Yeah, I think you guys said that you paid for 4.
Yeah.
So I'll write up something for 2 other random adventurers guilds.
Sorry, Mouse. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, thinking about it, and as we're talking about the Stratus Wilds, would I have flown over that working for Brownmore? And if so, do I remember anything useful?
You definitely would have. Um, uh, give me a history check.
My best skill.
Okay,
Could be worse.
that's good. That's
Very
good. Is there anything in particular you're trying to remember?
I think I'm just trying to remember if there were any settlements that seemed different from the rest.
I would say that in the time that you were doing that is probably a time that this place was still being built. I think you probably recall seeing with an 18 like that, you saw that there was construction happening within the forest. And this would have had to be a couple seasons ago. But I don't, and I think what would stand out to you is that it was really the only thing you saw going over the wilds, other than kind of more natural landmarks.
Got it. Makes sense.
With just as a note, with regards to natural landmarks and an 18, there was I think you may have asked Lord Brownmore or something at some point, and you do know that among whatever traps that the Hermetic Host has maybe put into play, you're gonna have to let Flint figure some of those out, but you also do know that there is a ravine that runs through the forest underneath the canopy. You would have only seen it by sort of sailing over the edge of the island and watching water fall off of it. Because the canopy is quite thick and dense in many places, as well as something that was referred to as the Enchanted Bramble Forest, an area that sort of supposedly has brambles that cannot be cut down.
That doesn't sound like a place we want to be.
Anything else?
What's our plan with this Hermetic Host group? Are we just going and like burning the place to the ground, or are we trying to like somehow more subtly sabotage them, or get evidence to like call in guards or something? Like, what's
last one's definitely not happening. To me, we're here to end this operation.
okay?
Drada asks, like sabotage, like murdering everybody.
Again, sabotage would be the first choice. I don't know what we're going to run into there, so I don't want to say everybody's a bad person. Maybe people are forced to work here. Maybe some people are trying to make it a living. So I think we assess when we get there, but the number one thing is we want to shut this down. And this Grajin Quickdust or whoever, I think we need to have a good long conversation with to understand exactly what they know of the total operation with Vaughn, what piece is next, where all these other things are going, because we're going to bring this down.
I think we need to be prepared for him doing what it takes to not be caught, and that of itself might be death. I mean, we already had like kind of the notion that Selne would kind of ruin people's lives if she found out that one of her compatriots in her organization betrayed her.
I think we offer the same thing we offered to Master Crex. Help us get out from underneath that thumb. We let you live. Maybe a broken bone or two, but
the more and more, the more we register our own guild, look into these guilds, deal with taxes, whatever else, and things. The more I kind of realize Ventus is a very bureaucratic and
Mm.
well-governed
Mhm.
society and place. I think we either need to do this very well or risk end up being on the wrong side of the law for a while.
What do you think, Flint?
I don't know. I'm just telling you. I mean, these guys are a registered guild. They pay their dues. Like, they were given land by a duchess. If they complain that their whole establishment got burned down, there might be an investigation. I don't know how good they are at their jobs. And stuff.
All right.
Is this vapor business bad for like an organization like the Jade Mask? Maybe we could have a conversation with them and try to get them to help us destroy the output, the manufacturing part. It's like I could see if it were to mess up Jade Mask plans, but I mean, you would know more than I do.
I like the thought. I think Jade Mask must know at least something about all this vapor stuff, because that's who we got the one plant from, was the Jade Mask, the real expensive one. So they're at least somewhat aware of or involved in all this. So I don't know. Maybe if they knew the full scope, they would be more put out by the idea that, there's these other groups, I don't know, making money that they don't get a cut of or something. I don't know. It's not exactly thieving that this group is doing, so I don't know how much it cuts into them.
So Flint, put you in charge of evidence gathering.
I mean,
this is step one.
Sure.
Right here.
I was going to suggest I just go buy a bunch of flammable stuff, but I mean, we can try and gather some, like, I think getting some evidence while we're there to cover our tracks and be able to show that we were trying to do good will be important.
That's what I was implying. I'm going to be too busy probably cracking some heads. So if you want to be on the lookout for ledgers, ingredient lists, distribution plans, stuff, I don't know what they're going to have there.
Too bad phones don't exist. We could just easily take video and send it off.
What's a video?
Out of character.
You guys, you guys saw the video in the Tournament of Tales of yourselves.
Oh yeah.
If only they had a crystal screen that they could broadcast illusions onto.
I'll work on a new infusion or something, a new item. Digital camcorder. Yeah, I think definitely picking up evidence along the way is going to be important. Depending on how long it takes us to get enough of that to like be able to come for Selne Vond or whatever, if we leave evidence of our own, I just think we should be prepared to be on the wrong side of the law for a while and stuff. Not saying it'll come to that, but see it as a potential threat.
I mean, hopefully, if our long-term goal is going to help people, does it really matter?
I mean, it just makes our lives harder for a little while. Hopefully, even if we do leave behind evidence or don't cover our tracks or whatever, they're too concerned about, whatever illegal dealings they had to call the cops, and they're just trying to come after us on their own. Which is maybe scary, but at least we can still, like, go to towns and not worry about getting arrested. But
just to give some DM insight into my thinking on this. without railroading you in any way. Things that might occur to you is your guild is sponsored by Aventir, and if your guild gets in trouble, your contract with Aventir may be in trouble as well. You know that Aula has, as of yet, you don't think Selne knows that you're on to them, right? Onto her, and so Aula has given you a tremendous amount of caution about ever revealing yourselves to anybody. And there's a degree to that optic, a degree to those optics that could be sort of like a leave no survivors situation, or a or what have you. And then of course there's all this element of the paperwork as well. Even having I think Flint would just pick up on this, sort of being the paperwork person. Even if you leave no survivors, right, that somebody will probably wonder, where is the Hermetic Host? Why haven't they reported in? And there's all sorts of magical means to communicate at long distances. And so what if, what could an investigation reveal if the Ventus Guild Federation discovered that that a guild was burned to the ground, and the last record that they have is of the Left Stars pulling their files? You don't know. There's a lot of, like, you will have to think about how you want to do this, and you may want to come up with like your contingency, like what you want your evidence or contingencies to be. And then there's the goal that you mentioned earlier as well. Like, is it just sabotage? Are you trying to disrupt the operation, or are you trying to destroy it entirely? And how do you do that while like maintaining the rest of your mission? So just letting you guys know that as a DM, I'm thinking about all these things, because you are right to recognize that there may be holes in the plan.
So, I say we go and crack some heads.
I think cracking heads is complicated. Leaves a lot of evidence, a lot of people. Even if we kill everybody, you can speak to dead. Like, I don't know what that, like, do we have to like pack up all the bodies and throw them off the edge or something? That's a long ways to take all those bodies.
Burn them, yeah.
I don't know if we can.
Well, I say cracking skulls. Just let's be honest. I'm not talking about necessarily killing anybody, but right. So if we go there and people are working, they're either essentially under the employ of Selne by their own admission, right, doing extremely illegal activities. Right? I don't care what this alchemical research, but you can't tell me that this is something that's above board. So the odds of them actually wanting to come and tell everybody what's going on, because then they would have to explain, well, why were you doing what, so long as we have evidence that shows it goes to vapor, why would you ever want to bring that to light? Because then it's going to bring the entire operation under scrutiny and everything else. So to your point earlier, yeah, we may piss off Vaughn and the others. And let's be honest, anything happens at any point, they're going to think it's us. Right?
Well, I don't know. I don't think Lady Vaughn thinks we're on to her. I don't think they have a good sense of how much we know or anything. She knows she doesn't like you.
Yeah.
But I don't think she thinks you're a threat yet. I think if she knew how much we know, that
she would want us killed.
Yeah. I'm just trying to think if like there's any way we can try to infiltrate this Hermetic Host, or like, we're an adventurers guild now. Could we, under the ruse of like doing some sort of work for them, get in there and like be able to get some records and Something, I don't know. I'm grasping at straws, but it's
If you
I
want to go that
mean,
route,
okay, good. Well, we could possibly get a sorry, my throat. A request, mission, goal, adventure, whatever, to fight something or investigate something in the Stratus Wilds, and then accidentally come upon this guild and investigate.
But aren't there things guarding it from accidental stumbling upon?
at least to some extent.
Yeah.
We could say we're looking for those kobolds if they find us.
X is still out there, stealing sausages.
Poor little thing.
At some point, Alua does stop by. She had promised to do so. And skipping past some of it, she provides 5 antidotes to Clax. I believe I put them in your inventory.
you did.
And you had asked her to look into Grajin Quickdust a little bit. So you all sort of, if you have follow-up questions for her, feel free, but sort of she catches you up on a little bit of actually what you've already heard. She does sort of drop that that he was given land by Duchess Sina. Her contacts sort of shared that in a story where she doesn't really reveal her contacts, but she says that she has people who have met Grajin and had drinks with him before. And she says some people say that his demeanor has changed over time. That years ago he was much more calm and collected, but perhaps as we saw in the Dream Mist, perhaps a little bit grumpier or a little deranged he's become over the years. People question what proximity to his own alchemy has done to his brain. Perhaps he's drank one too many potions. Some even say that it is entirely rumors, but that Duchess Sina gave him land in the Stratos Wilds as a means of limiting collateral damage. Should his experiments be too dangerous for civilization.
Sabotage. We'll just make it look like an accident.
I guess that could be easy if it's maybe there is alchemical fire there, and that's just a front, and we mess with that.
Yeah. What do I'm trained in alchemy. What do I know about alchemical fire? Is this something I could easily make a decent amount of, or is it really expensive to make, or
I expect that I can look this up, but I expect that on Clax's timetable, it would probably be a significant delay if you were to try to stockpile this over enough to make a difference, right? I think you would have. Go ahead and roll me a history check, actually.
The planning episode.
Okay, yeah, it is. You don't have intimate knowledge of it. You're pretty sure you could whip it up. You're a smart guy, and you're proficient in alchemy tools. I think of many things. You could figure it out. I think what you think about with an 18 is you recall that it was. You recall being taught how to make it as a sort of like as a kid by you don't have too many memories of exactly everything, but you have this vague memory of there being an elder of sorts among the forest gnomes who was teaching it as a means of like being able to keep people warm at night. And so A, you know, like what's the deal with that? But B, you know that it must be easy to make with sort of materials found within the forest or within forests.
Okay. So I know this guy didn't actually invent it. He just...
You don't know that, actually.
All right, fair enough. I guess he could be older than I think he is. No, or something. But okay.
While Elu is there, kind of pick her brain and kind of lay it on tip. What do you think our next step should be? Because here's the problem. I'm ready just to move and do something. This sitting around's been killing me. It's gotten worse and worse. I know we had to get things done. I've gotten things done. But we're not making a dent. We're not doing anything. I feel like the only thing we've done is destroy your network and make things worse for some of your contacts. I want to get out of the city and go bust up this operation. How much trouble am I going to cause for you by doing that?
This was always the plan. At least part of it is to destroy the operation. And she sort of like tries to hold her hands up in a non-selfish way and just say, so that I can rebuild it for my people. So I know that your vendetta is specifically targeted towards one person, but with the infrastructure in place, these people would jump at the opportunity to keep the money flowing. So we need to disrupt it in every corner that it's resting.
What are the odds if we disrupt this that this information becomes public knowledge and is not kept within the Vaughn tree, for lack of a better term? Because it's sensitive information, right? Like, if they find out that this got destroyed and people start sniffing around, do you think they would cut ties and move on, or do you think that they're going to try and recover this?
As I recall, this is the operation tied most closely to the red flower. I would suggest that she sort of thinks to herself for a second. The odd one, Brigella? I believe that carnival caravan, whatever it is, that if they are transporting the processed vapor, well, maybe there's an opportunity there. I think that might be one of the vulnerabilities to consider is eventually this carnival would come to Muhtal to find, to pick up or deliver in whatever way it needed to. Perhaps that's the opportunity, is can you cut off the entire red vapor, not the dream mist side of things, but the red powder all in one go?
Just hang out and wait for the carnival to show up and take both groups out? Or
after laying waste to what's there, camping out for a bit?
Yeah, I like the way she thinks.
yeah, it's not terrible. It does mean potentially killing a lot more people.
Yeah.
We haven't said anything about killing so far. We're just
No,
gonna go
if
have
we're
a
just
conversation.
hanging out there, are we gonna keep a bunch of prisoners or something? Like,
Yeah.
Cross that bridge when we get there.
Now, granted, I don't know how many people there are. Maybe it's just, a handful of guys and they're all super evil. But
That was something that I heard of as well. Is that supposedly in Grajin's conversations, he boasted having a recent recruitment drive and having 20 odd people. I don't have a gauge on how knowledgeable they are. I expect that he is a kingpin in many ways, which may mean that the rest are harmless.
Anybody want a new job?
Is that how we get in?
I mean, it'd be a real shame if the henchmen in town disappeared and they needed to find more, and we just happened to show up to fill that void.
I mean, we have people to talk to and try to get recruited into it in the city.
You're no fun. I was gonna say we make them disappear so that they have to fill that void, but yeah, I guess we can talk to people.
Well, you and I think differently.
Alo puts on a face and says, "There's been enough killing and death in the name of this trade. Of course, I want to see it shut down, and I won't stop you from dispatching Selne Vaughn's agents, but there may be innocence among them."
Well, and if we embed ourselves there, we might find additional allies, people who are recent join-ups who are less excited about being in the industry.
Or who don't know anything about it.
Yeah.
If you're an alchemist looking for work and somebody throws a red flower in front of you, it may not be clear what its purpose is. If it's being manufactured in bulk, I don't know.
Well, and if they just had a recruitment drive and he's a bit of a kingpin, whatever else, I don't think a lot of people are gonna like stick their necks out to save the guy. We could probably just scare most of them away. Like,
See? So again, Stratos Wilds, when we leaving?
I mean, it sounds like we're heading that way. It's just seeing if we need to stock up on anything before we go, or how we're handling it once we're there.
I think we need to be prepared to find illusions and destroy them, maybe. Illusionary magic just seems to be what's going to be stopping us.
Yeah, I would say just from what Flint knows about the magical beacons is that a single beacon could cast an illusion as big as a football field, like you would have, it would be difficult, not impossible, but difficult to find one of them. But then that is one of many challenges you may face, So the thing is being prepared for illusions, but it's not necessarily shrouding the entire forest.
I think I wouldn't mind either picking up somewhere or just trying to make myself some of this, alchemical fire. Maybe I just pick up a few things and make it while we're traveling, but I feel like having at least a little bit of that in case we want to try to start a fire somewhere that looks like somebody had an accident or something, being able to do it with their own stuff seems like a good idea.
It's smart.
That's all I got. I don't know.
Well, I mean, we can head out today if we don't need anything.
Well, it's evening now, so I think we'll probably head out in the morning, but...
Yeah. It's a shame it's not closer to Mistral. We should really pick up that Necromancer book we left buried in the woods.
Oh, God. That is in some little kid's hand at this point who thinks it's a little toy.
Just give directions to Fern to do a little fly over and like land.
Fern shows up possessed by an old necromancer.
Oh my god.
Any questions for Aloa before she sort of makes herself scarce? She sort of says, this is, if you're leaving soon, that's the most I can do with regards to Grajin. Do you still want me to look more into Krex?
Absolutely.
Anything in particular?
I feel like I would maybe leave Krex alone for now. I think we kind of handled that, and I don't want to spook him if he catches wind of anything.
It's not a bad idea. Then do we look for forgive me, the Dragonborn. He's the one name I can never remember. Garnet. Thank you.
I can.
Or
His name is
Brigella.
Hermetic even.
I know. I don't know why it's not seeing me. Garnet or Brigella.
Well, if I look into Brigella, it may be, if you follow my strategy, which you don't have to, but it may be that next time we see each other, that problem's already dealt with. But I also, if I'm being frank, I would potentially try to look for carnivals. There aren't many of them. At least I've never been to one, so I expect that the individual known as Brigella is probably not something my contacts would know.
Then
Could it make sense to try and look into Brinstriana? I feel like I remember Brinstriana also being someone who didn't care all that much about like the money or trying to
heard more about the flowers, right?
Yeah, she was more interested in like the research and like depending on what you find out, like I could see her potentially being fine to jump ship and work with you if you had the network set up to support it. I don't know if she's someone you'd want to work with, but
it sounded like her goals were to find other uses of the Dream Mist flower. And although that's a compromise I could make if it was required, it does sort of inhibit my mission.
She didn't seem very fun to work with anyway.
So we have Asham. That gathering the red flowers in Nightmire. They're sending them to Grajin. Grajin then gives them to Brigella in the Strass Wilds, and then Brigella in the Carnival moves through, and then there's somehow a handoff to Master Krex, the airborne carrier. Right? Did I get all that right?
I think
Or is that Garnet?
Garnet handles brokers who like Athena, the Jade Mask person that you guys met briefly. The impression I think you would have gotten is that Master Krex handles more of the air trade of the flowers, and that Brigella handles more of the land trade.
Got it.
Garnet seems to be a pretty hands-off person, more of like a networker, I would say. Although they did have a place, I think, close to Propitious that they had been seen at or talked about.
Oh, there it is. Okay.
She says, if I'm being frank, I expect that Garnet is probably the person who I would have the most luck finding. So perhaps I'll start there, and then next we check in, you can redirect me if need be.
That works for me.
She does look at you briefly, Clax, and says, is there anybody in Ildre that I could reach out to as a reliable contact?
Yes. Wait one.
Vice
can
pulls out
reach
his
out
phone
to
and
you.
looks out.
I can reach out to you, Lua, in case there's like any urgent updates that need to be sent back.
Very well. And if it becomes, I mean, my business will keep me here, but if in an urgent situation, I could come to you.
We appreciate the offer.
So as for people, you could reach out to anybody in my family, but realistically, best bet would probably be either Clorthak, my father, or Yumpyas, my mother. Don't ask me to re-say that. I'll throw him a chat though.
She nods with no recognition, but seems to be trusting. And she leaves. So, just before everybody goes to bed for the night, would there have been any final questions in relation to Jade Mask or Muhtal that you may have requisitioned information for?
Not that I can think of.
Okay. Well, it is the last evening of your extended stay in Consonance, the longest you've been in one location for some time. You've had a week of downtime, and you're setting out tomorrow for a new adventure. Of course, your parents are with you. I think they're, as these days have been blending into each other, there's probably a welcome home recovery squad barbecue in the neighborhood somewhere that they're just house hopping every other night to hang out with some other family,
Yeah.
And you of course would be invited to those should you wish. But is there anything that the party would like to accomplish in their last night here? Anything like in particular you're trying to do?
I think at some point I would probably try to pull Clax aside for a conversation.
I would quickly reach out to friends, being like, I'll be gone for probably an extended amount of time, but I'll let you know when I'm back in the city. Love you.
Is that just one for everybody?
Yeah.
Do you message Jory who's not in town, or like?
I do not.
Okay.
I do not. Yes.
Okay.
I don't want to make him worry.
Okay. Fair enough. Everybody is happy and excited to hear about what adventures you're going on.
I will also message. I'm scanning my notes to remember who's on the boat coming here, but one of my 3 friends
Fern.
to let them know that we're leaving town.
Okay. He replies and says, "I will park us where I can, and the left stars, I believe, is the name I should use. So yes, I'll see you when you get back."
Awesome. Glad to hear you can park now. That's awesome.
You can't communicate question marks over the sending spell, so who knows? Park question mark? Flint, if you want to go ahead and talk to Clax.
Sure. I think at some point as the evening's like dying down or whatever, I'd pull Clax aside and just be like, so this whole like Lady Vaughn stuff. I know you've got like a bone to pick with her, but like how much of this is vengeance and how much of this is like taking care of like the vapor problem for you at this point?
At this point, it's shifted a little. I if you would have talked to me, before we met up at the Heroes Academy, I wouldn't have cared about any vapor problem. So I do care a bit now. Is it my driving motivation? In fact, why I'm doing this? No, but to me, it's a nice benefit. Why do you ask?
So I haven't made any magic items for anybody in a long time. But I finished this necklace up. I think it should go to you. But
Already given me an axe.
yeah, but that's temporary. I mean, it's not a real. I've made a lot of magic items that I'm not pleased where they've ended up. And there's a difference between your axe that like I can turn off whenever and one of these magic items that kind of lasts forever. And like forever. These things just don't stop working. Been hesitant to give anybody any new magic items for quite a few years.
Understandable.
But I think, yeah, partly I'm tired of seeing you get mind controlled all the time. So I think this is it's a safe choice. But if I find out you're doing bad shit with it, I'm coming for you. But yeah, try this thing on. Hand him the circuit weave pendant. You probably won't like it, just FYI. But
What do you mean I won't like it?
It'll probably hurt a little bit, but it'll do you good.
I already get enough pain.
Yeah. Well,
So, like, what are we talking about?
So mechanically, just to summarize, as a bonus action, you can add some lightning damage to lightning damage and some other benefits to your axe for a turn. And you can spend extra charges on this pendant to increase that. But what Flint is referring to is that if you are charmed or frightened at the beginning of your turn, you automatically spend your bonus action to attempt to reset your brain as a shock is delivered to your system in order to try to like defibrillate you out of it. And it's not guaranteed, but it does happen automatically, and you cannot control that.
And then it potentially gives you a turn, from
Yeah,
a
it would-
mechanic standpoint.
Yeah, you would spend your bonus action to potentially get the rest of your turn back.
Yep.
You would take damage as a result.
I assume that.
I mean, I did make it out of that fulgurite from that thunder, whatever it was called, thunderbird of some kind. So it's a little electrically charged.
Well, I mean, it's better than being charmed and being, a pincushion for certain members of this party. So, I'll kind of just make sure Drada's not lurking in the background, listening into the conversation.
But try it on, see what you think. You'll figure it out. Spend an hour with it.
Yeah. Thank you, and I'm trying to be as honest with this group as possible. I'm not in this for straight altruism, but I'm also not here to wantonly kill people or do anything like that. It's just,
yeah,
I want something as simple as revenge, because right now that's my guiding light, and that's what I'm going for.
And I understand that with Lady Vaughn. I just want to make sure we're still doing it for at least some of the right reason. And like I said, I'll come for you if you use it wrong later on.
Good.
But
Thank you, Flint.
I've added it to your inventory. You can attune to it without much issue, but you can sort of read it and become a little bit more familiar with it. Anything else this evening before you all have a long rest and have the opportunity to prepare spells? Okay. Well, let's just go ahead and take a little break so you can read up on that. Prepare your spells if you feel like it, and we'll come back in like 5-7 minutes and start the adventure.
Sounds good.
Alrighty. So you all enjoy a long rest. I don't know that anybody spent any resources, but feel free to hit the button anyway. And prepare your spells. Now, you guys are level 9, right? Your everyday wolf or small time encounter on the road is pretty insignificant. I'm not saying that road travel is uneventful, but it is inconsequential. With this being one of the main roads that spans across central Ventus for the 2 days that you're on it. If there's anything you would like to accomplish during those 2 days, feel free to do so. I know that you guys have, people that you like to send messages to or things, or if there's things you want to talk about. The first 2 days of travel are pretty uneventful as you start to follow the directions laid out within the permit of secrecy that had been provided by the Ventus Guild Federation. You understand that you travel on the road for 2 days before having to go northwest into the forest. And that is sort of the point of no return where it does not provide any more intricate details on how to get there. So you do have a couple days of overland travel to do any final things, or if there's anything more you want to talk about as you're processing this journey, feel free to do so.
I would ask this before we leave town because I would potentially need materials, but would it behoove us to have continual flame on us?
Did you say continual flame?
Yeah, I think we have some gemstones. I can make a flame that creates no heat and doesn't use oxygen, but stays light as long as it's not hidden.
Can you use continual flame to start a fire, or is it just a light source?
A flame equivalent in brightness to a torch springs forth from an object I touch. The effect looks like a regular flame, but creates no heat and doesn't use oxygen. Can be covered or hidden, but not smothered or quenched.
It's sort of like making a little magic torch,
Yeah. I think it sounds neat.
Ignore that.
I sort of want one, but I
mean, it would replace the stones that you gave us if we just had permanent flames that don't burn us.
That's true. Keep them in little lanterns or something that you can hide or close or whatever when you're not using them.
Oh my god, a little lantern? That'd be cute.
Totally don't have one at my disposal.
Not at all. Totally would not be prepared to use a lantern with a flame. No, not at all.
What are your prop for one of your photo shoots, or?
I actually got it. It was a Christmas decoration, and then I tore it apart because I wanted it as a regular lantern, and I'm still deciding what to do with it.
Fair.
Mm-hmm.
I would say I know that we had hastily converted some gems to dust. Some gems to gold from Aesop's purse. But in theory, if you wanted to convert some of that gold into ruby dust for a continual flame, you certainly could.
How much would we need for ruby dust?
It's 50 gold worth per permanent flame. They're not cheap, but they're also forever.
You said it could be covered, so it's not like an on and off switch, but you can cover it up.
I think so. You can block the light.
Oh, wow. I think that would be smart to have for someone who doesn't have dark vision. How much? So how much would I? Because I'll just use the extra coin that I got from those gems for this. So I think I missed the gold per
Well,
amount.
so just you would deduct 50 gold from your inventory if you want to do this.
Yeah, Mouse, I think that's a really good idea, especially for me who can't really see that well in the dark.
Is there any for you? I guess assuming that this is a thing that Aesop would carry. Is there any particular thing you would want this flame to be cast on? It is sort of like a permanent enchantment. It could be on your hat, but then there's the problem if you want to hide it, you have to put your hat away, you know.
Yeah. No, I think I would try to find a lantern as we leave the city. I imagine there's a store shop and lanterns are common enough.
Your parents have one. Yeah,
okay. Yeah,
you're fine.
I think having an actual lantern would be something that Aesop would have.
Do your parents have 2 lanterns?
Sure.
This is for a really good purpose, thanks. So I take them away.
Well, and you could
Oh.
you could cast it on like a stone or a coin or something like that, and you could just put that in the lantern, or be able to easily take it out and affix it to something else or whatever for some reason.
That's true. Easier way of putting it, smothering the light.
Why don't I just cast it on our stones that we were already using as flashlights, but now they're flaming instead of lighting?
Sure.
Sure.
Okay, so that's 100 gold, 50 per, right?
Yeah, we'll say at that point that's all the rubies that you had in that gem pile, though.
I think that, yeah, that's fair.
Okay, and who is so Aesop has one of these continual flame stones and a lantern.
Mm-hmm.
Who would have the second?
Sounded like Mouse.
I would take it.
Okay. And I would
Lantern buddies.
I would say, and you can tell me if this is something that you want to do, but it's probably relatively easy to affix a lantern onto your staff.
As long as it's also easy for me to throw something over it and cover it, absolutely.
I think Flint could. I'm not telling Flint what to do, but like, could create a little shutter or something to essentially shield it or seal it off when not in use.
I'm failing to think of the right words right now, but like, there's definitely like ways to make a lantern that just points in like one direction, and you can like close it off. And
yeah, it's like a shotgun lantern or something. I forget.
It's something.
You want to make 2 of those?
I mean, if that's what I mean, yeah, I think with all this free time on the road, Flint can modify these lanterns to be. I would say, okay, I'll work on it between games, but essentially, you have a lantern that has a extendable shutter that can either wrap around at 360 degrees, or it can be sort of partially closed so that the light focuses in one direction.
That's amazing.
What level spell is that, Mouse?
2.
Love.
Anything else that you would like to do during your first uneventful days?
I guess
Aesop, I think Aesop would just draw a lot. Just kind of hasn't spent a whole lot of time in nature recently, just being cooped up in the city. I would just kind of not be lost in the book, but kind of would be traveling a lot with an open book in hand. But that's it.
Okay.
Sorry.
Oh, did I miss something?
No, I was saying, okay. Sorry, Flat, for interrupting you.
I was just gonna say, I at some point during the travels and at night and whatever, just work on like some amount of alchemist fire. Assuming I can
Yeah.
whip that up with things along the way.
Yeah. Give me an alchemy check. With advantage because you're a fire guy.
I think I get advantage. No, I get expertise.
Oh, Jesus.
So I don't know this is gonna get much better, but sure.
I would say, so as you enter the forest and start to look at the available resources for you, how you're gonna need to expend some of like you have like alchemical pouches of like I think like different components and powders that you would mix with the natural ingredients in order to create this. I think you could make up to 3 in this time. The raw materials that you would be spending would be 25 each.
Probably, I think based on that, probably just make 2. I feel like I'm not going to use it for anything other than just like starting a fire just to make it look like it was their own ingredients. So I don't think I'll need a ton of it.
Oh, sorry. It actually is. It may be less expensive. Hold on.
Oh, is it? I haven't looked it up.
It's half of whatever the. No, I was correct. So yeah, a flask normally costs 50 gold. You can produce it for 25.
Okay. Yeah, I'll just make 2 of them then, I think.
Okay.
As we go, I would also be using my cartographer's tools to note, just keeping track of our path and trying to create a map of the area and knowing that there aren't a lot of detailed maps.
Okay. Give me this is going to be a kind of a roll that is perpetual over the course of this adventure. Go ahead and give me a cartographer check on that. Okay. Yeah. I think as we get through the different steps of this journey, you will be able to, without issue, start to, I would say with the 22, like you're able to map this out with regards to the illusions as well. You're not going to be able to see through the illusions, but you're kind of like, all right, well, regardless to what the illusion is, this is the way we need to go. Quickly adding, I think I have, okay. You should have 2 alchemists. No, that's alchemist supply. What am I doing? Okay, I added the wrong thing. You should have 2 alchemist fires in your inventory as soon as it appears. There it is. Okay.
See it.
Cool. Well, we get to the 3rd day in your journey. As you start to see some irregularities. What would your forgive me for making assumptions, but I assume to some degree Drada would be on scouting duty. What would the marching order be beyond that?
I imagine I'd probably be going next until it gets dark out. Once it's dark, that's a bit of a different story.
I feel like Mouse is not like stable anywhere in the lineup. She's zipping back and forth, both talking to people and looking at fun plants and seeing cool things on a tree, and isn't good at staying in line.
I'll put you wherever you feel like.
I think Flint's probably in the back. He's slow.
I'll be 1 ahead of Flint, just trying to look over everybody's heads and seeing if I could find or like start to look for, if I'm seeing irregularities and like things start to look weird, I think my mind will instantly try to like scope out or arcane anything, illusionary anything. Something that just weird stuff that just looks off.
Yeah, we haven't gotten into what irregularities are out there yet. Just trying to get the general marching vibe for starters.
If we're sending a scouting party, I can also fly. I don't want to use both of my charges in a day, but I think if I become a bird, I can be a bird for like 4 hours now.
Let me give you a little bit more information about sort of what you're walking into as far as mechanics of this are concerned as well as description. So, I think we sort of briefly did a version of this back at the very beginning of the campaign as you were sort of grid searching for the Necromancer ruins. You have been pointed in this instance to a grid square, but you also know that grid square accounts for a 25 square mile area of land, and to some degree, I expect, and Drada would probably lead in this train of thought, is that now is the time for caution, and so you're sort of traveling a little bit slower as well. What we are going to do is we're sort of going to take turns to have players roll dice to determine sort of where they are in the forest at the time, and then you need to accomplish. You need to succeed at 6 of these encounters in order to find your location.
Hot.
They're not combat encounters. I'm not saying that they're all combat encounters. I'm saying that there's like a variety of things that you could come across in your grid search, and you are trying to sort of narrow down the location of this place. So, which is to say, if in the event you choose to become a bird as part of solving one of these puzzles, that would be the time to do so. Now, for starters, and I'd sort of worked this out with Jacob. If you guys saw before the game started, Jacob had rolled a few dice for me. As Drada is leading the pack, and sort of indicates that they are going to scout ahead and report back on this first leg of the journey. This is sort of standard procedure for you all. Drada goes forward into some dark area, and you wait for him to get back. Ahead of you is sort of more forest, but you're sort of reaching the point at which you need to be alert for whatever defenses may have been put into place here, whatever illusions, whatever it is. And you sort of send Drada to do a quick pass on a sort of area of forest in front of you. The canopies here are very thick. This is not sort of like there's no walking paths that you can easily discern. There are a bunch of like boulders that seem out of place, and there's a few fallen trees here and there. You hear various sounds of wildlife and birds and whatnot. This is a pretty dense forest area, and in this moment, you're sort of relying on Drada to just get a vibe for what's up ahead, as you've often relied on him for. And you see, without pause or caution, he leaps into a tree that just basically walks up it, and you sort of from the edge of your vision see him jumping from treetop to treetop before he's out of view. You wait what seems like the normal amount of time, and Drada has not returned. You wait a little longer. Just, don't know how dense the jungle is. Drada has not returned.
I think I would look at Mouse and be like, should one of us send the message off?
I can't message during the day.
Hot. Okay. So I think I will send a message off. I think that might be the best plan. So I'll put that in chat just so we keep track. Sending spell. There we go. I'll send a message off being like, hey, Drada, just making sure everything's good. It's been a while. Do we need to come in?
You get a response back. And again, already, I worked this out with Jacob, so it's not, I'm trying to not script this too much, but Drada responds, so I got a little lost. I think I found some footprints that I can follow, but I have no idea where you are. Keep going and I'll find you.
I can't. Okay, I can't respond. So I'll say to the everyone else, so Drada's a little lost. We all have an off day, understandable. But they did mention that if we just move forward, that Drada will be able to find us. Drada did not say there was anything that we need to worry about on the walk forward, so I'm going to assume that we are fine.
All right then.
At the, I guess, wherever Drada's at has found footsteps. But that was the only information that I received.
Can I start knowing that there were footprints? Can I also start looking around as we move forward to see if I can also find tracks?
That sounds like an excellent opportunity for you to roll a d10 for me.
Ooh.
And let me know.
Unexpected.
We'll sort of see how this first leg of the journey goes. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So again, Millie has rolled this and has some, I'm sort of demanding from the player who rolls the dice to take some leadership role in how this plays out, but other players can interact as well. Let's just be clear. So as you begin marching in the same, I think still sort of behind Clax, I expect, marching in the direction of Drada. I'm going to make some assumptions here that people are trying to be stealthy. So we may roll a couple of these throughout the journey. It's not indicating that this matters right now. But if we could get a round of stealth checks from folks, that would be great.
Yeah. I just want to remind myself that I have disadvantage because of scale mail, right? Yep. Okay. And then it should be... Is it Alt or Shift for disadvantage?
Control, I think, is disadvantage, and Shift is advantage.
Cool.
Flint, how does it feel to have a straight roll?
I like that I got rid of my disadvantage just in time for somebody else to get disadvantage.
Yeah, well, there
You lost your one stealthy party member.
I intentionally didn't bring Pass Without a Trace because I knew Drada had it.
If you want to retcon that, I will allow it. Okay.
No, I intentionally thought, hey, I don't need this.
All right. Yeah, I will be candid. Drada is very stealthy right now. Rolled very high, but unfortunately got lost. So I think you all know that you are not quite stealthy. It's a matter of perhaps getting used to the landscape. One thing that strikes you as well. I'm going to ask Clax and Mouse to roll a perception check. I think Mouse, Clax catches this first, and it sort of dawns on Mouse, as I expect Clax would sort of pause for a moment. One of the reasons that you understand that you're not very stealthy is you're hearing the crunch of leaves underneath your feet as you march forward in this dense forest. And then you start to not hear anything. And you
Like not even the leaves crunching.
Not even the leaves crunching. And you turn back and you see your party behind you, and you don't hear them.
Kind of tell everybody to stop. Gonna try and whisper.
Yeah. Clax's mouth moves and nobody hears anything.
Gonna gesture forward the direction we're headed, or gesture back. Shrug. Look at Mouse.
Realizing most of my spells have V in it. That's
Yeah.
great.
I was just looking through mine. I think every spell I have has V in it.
Every single spell.
I have one or two that don't, but okay. Interesting.
Pretty sure I can still wild shape.
Yeah, there is one thing I can do. Just one. It's a single thing. All right, we move forward.
Is there anything in particular that people are trying to do as you walk into this area?
I would be on the lookout for these
Beacons.
beacon. Thank you.
Yep, I will assist with that.
If you could, so I want to, like, is your goal to spend extra time in order to zigzag through the woods and find a beacon? If so, it's sort of investigation. Or is it like you're looking for glints of metal in the distance as you just try to push forward, which would be more of a perception?
For me, it's push forward to try and get out of the sphere of influence of the silence. And if we happen to see it, like keeping an eye out, again, whether it's a metal beacon, stone beacon, whatever, just something that's not nature made. But to me, I don't think we'd be zigzagging.
Yeah, I concur. I was looking for the source of this so we could move directly away from it faster. Or look for other beacons so we can avoid them.
Okay. Then I guess if one of you wants to roll perception with advantage, if you're helping.
I'm not very good at it, but
I'll take that.
Sure.
To say, I know one of you is good at it, and one of you is not.
take the advantage of me helping.
Hey, okay.
Wow.
Advantage for the win.
Let me ask what Flint and Aesop are doing in this instance. And I'll also ask, I mean, how do you help without the ability to communicate? Before we accept the natural 20, let's just sort of talk about how that looks.
That is a good question. Flint, do you want to go first?
No, I was watching Sean's camera. It sounds like Sean's putting mouse on his shoulders. Or
Yeah, I was trying to-
Claxus.
Yeah, so I pretty much I'd pantomime to Mouse. I'm going to pick you up, put you on my shoulders, so you have a higher viewpoint, because I'm 6'7" to begin with, and then put her way up there. So that's how I would assist.
Mouse thinks you're looking for a hat, so she like starts to like look and see if she has anything to make one, and you just pick her up and plop her up there.
Okay. What are Aesop and Flint doing?
I think seeing that we're getting into, the territory of bad things potentially happening or whatever, I think Flint would start by taking out his protector turret or cannon and getting us all.
Did you see 13, 14, whatever it is?
Well, I don't know that I can just. I guess I could probably spam cast it. I don't know. But I was just going to cast it once, but I'll take 13 if you want to give it.
I think that there's no immediate danger, so it doesn't, like, you're not actively being shot at, and I expect you would just spam it.
Sure. I give everybody. Is 13 my max now? I think it's the D8 plus 5, I think that's true. So, yeah. Give everyone 13 temp pip.
Okay. Except Drata.
Except Drata.
Alrighty.
I don't think I can contribute to the search as people are already doing that. I think in terms of if we need to run or if we, I guess mine's more along the line with Flint that if we do get in a scuffle, like I'll prepare myself. The only spell that I can do is Kinetic Jaunt. I can move faster. And difficult terrain doesn't affect me.
Sorry, are you saying that you're casting that on yourself, or you're just like preparing for the worst?
Preparing, yeah. Because we already got eyes out, and that there's not much I can do in this situation because I'm also not stealthy.
Okay.
So, yeah.
So with a perception of 28, you, with your sort of vantage point, again, it is pretty thick, dense vegetation. I think what you are attuned to in this moment is you are particularly looking for something to avoid. Flint had sort of explained that these things have a pretty wide radius that they can cast on. And I think you know that it would be just with how dense things are, even with a natural 20, it's probably hard to pinpoint a glint of metal from very far very easily. But what you do observe is all sorts of sort of traps that are about. You do see sort of like some of them are a little bit typical, like traps for game, something that might like catch a rabbit or something, like a little rock that falls over a branch sort of trap. But you also do see a few holes in the ground that have been covered over with blankets and moss and leaves and things of that nature. And I think you probably I don't know if you're just like tugging Clax on the ears to direct him. But I think you, with a 28, you know what to avoid in order to safely navigate this. The other thing you sort of perceive with this 28 is that these traps, you don't know if, like, the worst case scenario is that there's somebody who's hiding better than your eyes can perceive, which is unlikely. But you get the impression that these traps are meant to hinder or to hurt or to kill, but that they are not necessarily as part of an ambush. You don't see any threats on the horizon that are set up. So does that change your direction at all, or do you just sort of keep directing Clax forward?
I think I keep directing forward, like pointing out things that are trap related as we go. And every few steps saying something out loud so that I know when we're out of silence, if that happens.
Okay. some time passes, a good 30 minutes or so, as I think even in this situation, you're still moving at half speed, trying to be cautious, and probably even slower than that as you're trying to communicate to Aesop and Flint behind you to also not trip on these things. But eventually you hear, you can start shouting, but I think you start to hear the crunch of leaves underneath your feet again, and you test out your vocal cords and can hear yourself.
Hear tinnitus in a zone of silence?
Does Flint suffer from tinnitus?
Lots
Lots of explosions, I mean.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sure. I sympathize.
So this place is definitely trapped.
Means we're headed in the right direction.
It's true. It's a nasty area of effect for silence. God.
That
Yeah.
you still working out for you up there?
I mean, I can walk
Right.
normally if you prefer. If we want to look for tracks again, I'd probably need to get closer, but...
Nope. I'd rather you keep an eye out for traps if you're good with it.
And if we ever get worried, I also have find traps today.
I don't know if I've ever seen anyone cast that spell, but it seems appropriate.
Yeah.
It's not really very good, but if perception fails.
For your awareness, each of these legs of the journey is approximately 2 hours at the speed that you're moving. If you like blow something out of the water, then it's a little less than that. Like with this perception check, I only did 1 hour, but so just keep that in mind when it comes to spell durations and whatnot.
It is good to know.
Well, and you can tell me if that changes how you would have done this canon thing, because I didn't really tell you that.
I don't think so, because I think
Because you keep it,
the
yeah.
last, and like probably would have noticed mouse pointing at traps and things, and
Yeah.
it would have made sense.
Okay. So you have the temporary points, but your canon, I think, has disappeared at this point. Okay. Who would like to roll dice number 2?
I'll go. Get it out of the way.
Alrighty. Roll a d10, re-roll a 2.
Ah,
Big 5. As the sound of leaves returns to you, it's not quite time where you can reset with a new stealth check. You're still trying to get your footing in this territory. As the sound of leaves returns to you, you also start to hear the sound of running water. As you sort of inch a little closer to what seems to be a rushing ravine that stretches wide and has depths that are, you sort of look over the edge and see depths that are shrouded in darkness, and it's really kind of difficult to discern how deep it is. The expanse to sort of get across this ravine, you sort of see several options beyond your own spell creativity that you can decide to use. There's the good old try to jump, but this one is probably not going to be that. This is a good 50 feet across, and is sort of what you observe in a clearing as you reach the edge of the forest in this area. You don't see any construction to this. There is no rope bridge. There is no anything of that nature. You do see that it right now is taking up a sort of T intersection that you're colliding with, but you do see to the left that it does seem there's sort of like an area where it seems to snake around into a cliff side that does have like a very narrow walking path to progress forward, using sort of the loose directions that you know from the information that you were able to research. You know that you're heading in the right cardinal direction if you were to just sort of find a way across it. But if you were to try to snake around it, you don't know how far off the path that would take you. And I think Mouse would know from having flown over this before that, you know, the water falls off the edge. So the river may thin at some point, but it will never peter out entirely. So the question is, you have reasonable confidence that you need to cross this river. But the sort of first questions you would ask yourself are, do we try to find a way over it right now, or do we try to make it easier on ourselves, but maybe a little bit of a detour?
I mean, I think I can fly us over. I just won't be able to talk until I stop flying, and it seems like a waste. And I'd have to hover above because I think the trees are fairly thick.
Well, I got the.
Go ahead.
Is there like clearing on each side, or is it forced like right up to the?
There's a very short clearing where I think you go and roll a nature check, Clax. I know it's maybe not your number one thing.
Very much of it isn't strength or constitution based. It ain't my thing.
There you go. I think it's your situational awareness. You see that you imagine that this is not a. You don't know if it's it's not a man-made ravine, but it seems supernatural, perhaps in the way it's been made. What you sort of looking down into it, you do see that through, like, there are some tree roots that are on the interior of the walls of this ravine. And so like the impression that you get with an intelligence, with a nature 19, is that trees, however this was made, trees fell into it, and there was like sort of a natural clearing that was made on both sides. But I'm trying to figure out how to describe this. Clearly this is recent, and the trees were destroyed in the process of it being made. And it seems like there was some intention to create landings on each side so that it wouldn't just be thick forest.
I was more thinking that I wouldn't immediately drop form and probably can't fly through the trees once we're going back through the forest again.
I mean, these guys have to get in and out of here somehow. Like, surely there's got to be like a bridge or a, like, I don't know, something.
Maybe it's illusionary. Maybe they know the exact spot to walk through.
Going towards that path that kind of circles around, does it seem like there are footprints? And if so, are they going both directions?
You could roll a survival check if you'd like.
Drada's still not back with us, are they, or are they not back with us?
Correct. You have not seen Drada.
Cool.
I think at the mention of illusion, Flint might sit down and just try and ritually cast Detect Magic. If we're paused here for a second.
I'd say if Mouse is checking for tracks, that's a more lengthy activity, so you would have 10 minutes to pop out the Detect Magic.
Cool.
With a 20 survival, I'm imagining that you're not trying to get outside of the line of sight of the party. Or are you? Like, how far away are you trying to explore?
I wouldn't get out of line of sight of the whole party. If I am looking out of sight, I would bring probably Clax with me, if willing.
Absolutely.
Okay. I would say as you are just getting to the edge of the vision where you would start to lose Flint and Aesop, you see that as it sort of snakes around, it becomes almost there's sort of like a sheer cliff face that extends in a way that would not be a fun climb, and you don't even know if it would sort of lead up the way you want. What you do observe, though, is that on the sheer cliff face, there's a very narrow, like 4-inch flattened path, and there are a number of like spikes that are hammered into the side of the cliff that do have like holes in them. So you imagine it's not, you don't actually do with this information what you will. You don't actually see any tracks insofar as footprints. What you see is like a mountain climber trail that does not spark fun and confidence, because at the bottom of it is this raging ravine.
Is this a path that would allow you to cross the ravine?
No, it would continue to snake around into wherever. So you'd have to go across it in order to discern where it leads. But you don't want to get farther away from the party.
So one concern is Drada. While I trust that everything's okay, I'm not sure we want to end up on the other side of a river.
Yeah.
So it might make sense to follow the trail for the time being, even though it takes us out the direction. I can fly easily if we want to cross.
And I can dimension door me and someone else across as well.
I mean, I would just ferry us, because I can be a giant eagle and just pick you up one at a time.
Okay. I could send them another message to see if they've seen the ravine, if they crossed it.
I mean, if there is a mountain climbing, whatever type of path, we know Drada can do that no problem. Drada'll just walk on the walls. I have faith that Drada could find a way over. Not a bad idea to let them know we crossed the river, but
yeah, I think I will do that. I'll do another sending, and reach out to Drada and be like, "Hey, I don't know if you've seen the ravine. We want to cross it. If so, are you able to cross it as well? Where are you?"
Like I'm trying to work out in my head when this session will end and when Drada may be able to rejoin the party. The response you get is it's in a little bit of a stealth mode whisper, not like a hunter's whisper. You don't get the impression that Drada's tailing anybody, but
expected. Yeah.
But he says, "I have not seen or heard any ravine. I'm still on the path, though. And I haven't stopped." I think there's sort of a moment as well, as you're having this crosstalk and as the detect magic goes off. There is certainly something illusory about this place. Your detect magic cannot wipe away an illusion, but I think you have a little bit of confirmation, is that there is something about this that is not totally right.
I don't know, like, what in your head, like, I know most illusions have some sort of, like, you can investigate it to try to see through it or discern that's an illusion or something, but I think kind of knowing that there is illusory magic, Flint would be, you know, kind of looking around for anything that like just looks off, like any sort of light shimmering or something, or whatever illusions look like in this world, or just like throwing some rocks over the edge in different places to see if maybe they land on like a bridge somewhere or things like that.
Yeah, I was gonna take up the throwing rock method.
If you want to make an investigation check to try to see through an illusion, then you may.
Can I give him advantage by also providing rocks?
Well, sorry.
Other directions.
Is it investigation through rocks, or is it investigation just through like, because like illusions you can sort of just like suss out with your eyes.
Then,
Rocks is like a second form of testing almost.
Yeah, I mean, I think predominantly he's looking for signs of illusions, and Flint knows whatever that looks like better than I do. But yeah, mostly trying to see through them. But if that entails, you know, throwing some dust or dirt in the air or whatever, and trying to discern where there's a bridge or something, I think he would be.
Yeah,
but...
I think that the visual scan without any other feedback, like physical feedback, would you're trying to find a glitch in the matrix sort of thing. So go ahead and just give me an investigation check for that.
Okay.
Well, that's your second one.
You're rolling
Wow.
great tonight.
You do not sense a single thing, which with a natural 20, because you're getting information for these nat 20s, tells you that it must be an invisible something. Whatever it is not the type of illusion that can be discerned. It is an illusion that has made something disappear.
Is Mouse and Clax back from their investigation?
Yeah, they sussed it out and came back, I imagine.
I'm curious if there's something at the bottom of that mountain hike path, because it just looks blank down there. But I want to see if I could like throw a rock at the river spot where it ends and see if it lands in the river, if it lands on something. Can I go do that?
Yeah. Aesop's like, I'm doing it.
I would follow along with Aesop and just with like a stick, like held over the edge of the ravine.
Yeah.
It's like as we walk, just trying to see if it bumps into a invisible bridge or something at some point. But
well, the ravine is, I want to be clear, the ravine is it's not at your foot level. Like it's like a good 10-foot drop before the water is there as well. So you can hold your stick over the edge to try to hit something. But that is like, okay. It's not necessarily the full picture of
there could be a bridge down
yeah for all you know,
flying down and then cross. Okay.
I'm not saying that's true, but I'm just sort of painting a picture of it's not a foolproof plan. Aesop, you throw a rock, go ahead and make an attack roll with disadvantage because you don't know what you're attacking.
This is true.
This would just be like a
D20.
Hit the. Do you have like a ranged weapon?
I have a dagger.
Just roll your dagger just for the sake of the easy button. It would be disadvantage in theory. Yeah. You throw a rock down and it disappears into the waves. Flint, you're running your stick across the edge. Go ahead and give me an investigation check again. I want to also be clear, like, you are taking up time by doing this. If you're trying to comb the desert for a grain of sand, it's like you do have to, I think with a 17, you don't know that this method is going to reveal anything. You think if there is invisible bridge of some kind, it might be lower.
I could probably burn some spells and be able to see invisibility, or we could fly over.
We're not getting any luck doing anything else, unfortunately.
I'm fine with the flying idea at this point.
I like flying. So I will walk to the openest clearing as I slowly, probably tail first, sprout feathers and form into a giant eagle.
Alrighty. You do so.
And I will pick up Clax first. And just like grab Clax by the shoulders. Or whatever is the most appropriate way to carry someone in claws. I guess I could squat and you could get on my back. I tried this clawing and keep hitting the armor, and so then I just kind of lay down and let him climb on.
Well, I'll do my best to hold on. Do my best to scramble on without like making it awkward.
I made it through that description without using the phrase "mount me," so pretty proud of that. And I will fly you across to the other side.
Excellent. Is there anything that folks? I mean, because we could. Yeah, you pick up, put down, pick up, put down. Is there anything that anybody's doing in this time other than just getting ferried over?
Keeping an eye out, making sure we're not being watched or something.
Okay. I mean, roll a perception check.
All right. Had to end it something.
There it is.
You're pretty confident that you're not being watched.
Holy shit, Mouse is a bird!
Alrighty.
Yeah, no, I don't think I would be focused on anything else.
Okay. Was this wild shape, or this was not polymorph, I imagine?
That was wild shape,
Okay.
because then I keep my mental faculties.
Okay. Recognizing that the effort of ferrying your friends is a something that would take no more than 5 minutes, probably, at your most efficient. Would you just turn back when it's back to walking, or are you like, what are you trying to do to optimize this time?
Yeah, as soon as everybody's landed, I will fly upward through the gap in the trees above the canopy, and just keeping an eye on the spot where they are, do a quick circle just to see if I see sign of Drata, if I see sign of more beacons, or if I see sign of any direction we should be heading in.
Okay. Again, the canopy is pretty thick, and so I think even as an eagle, you're going to have a difficult time seeing through it, but you do a lap. Go ahead and give me a perception check. Do eagles have keen eyes advantage?
I believe I have keen sight, but I'm pulling it up now.
Okay, I dragged out the token if that helps.
Yes.
I do have keen sight.
Okay, so advantage with Mouse's stats. Okay. With a 19, you sort of, I would say, here's what I will offer you. Go ahead and roll. I'm going to let the next, let's say, Eric, go and roll me 3d10. And we're just going to sort of, we're going to present you with options.
All right.
Reroll one of those, just because.
Just cause.
Because you got two of the same number. Yep.
Once.
Highs and lows.
I'm rolling this one.
Get your-
Okay.
Get your ones out of the way.
Okay, I'll take the 6. I was like, I'm just gonna do it. Okay, so 1, 10, and 6. Giving a hint at what is beyond. And these are all sort of in the same general direction, Mouse. You don't think that going in any particular direction is going to save you time, but these are all across the river. In one area, you see an unnatural fog cloud that seems to be rolling over this sort of section of forest. In another, you see a clearing with a sort of clearing in the forest that has a sort of ruin or like ruined temple or stone structure of some kind. With a 19, it's too far away to truly discern. But I would say that like you see a landmark of somewhere that has sort of fallen to a little bit of decay. Nothing about it necessarily, like there's not any like necromantic mist coming out of it or anything like that. It just sort of looks like a building in the distance. And the last one, you sort of look in the direction sort of most closely aligned with that cliff face, and you see that there's a degree of strangeness where the cliff face starts to blend into trees upon trees that are like, if somebody was to be climbing along that cliff face, it does eventually lead into an almost natural tree bridge that goes over the river and continues in the direction you want. But the nature of it is like that there's not that much ground, because you would be basically like climbing on trees to avoid falling into the river to continue heading in that direction.
I'm not sure if I would understand this, but based on the movement of the unnatural fog cloud, is it moving towards the direction of us or either of the other two things you've described?
No. I would say it's moving in the sense that it's pulsing.
But overall, it's stationary. Like
It appears to be, yeah. And so I think with that information, you could report back to the party either in bird form and try to maintain that, or pop out of it.
As much as I would love to stay a bird, I think I will pop out and more or less relay that to the team. Say, okay, there's 3 different directions we could go. There's kind of this unnatural pulsing fog cloud that I think we should avoid. Maybe it's hiding sight the same way that last beacon was hiding sound. There's a clearing with a ruined stone structure. Maybe it'd been a temple. I think that could be interesting, but maybe not related to our current quest. And then if you go this way towards the cliff face, there's kind of this weird thing where the cliff blends into the trees, and it seems like there's very little ground. So it might, I'm sure Drada could do it, but not all of us are quite as dexterous as others, and it looks like it might be a bit of a difficult climb.
Roll me an additional, just a flat D20 as well.
You betcha.
It's like when you're rooting for a natural 1 because you're a halfling, and then you just don't get it.
I know.
Nothing.
To me, it almost seems like we only have one direction to go, but the ruin might have its own dangers within it.
Certainly
Is-
seems the easiest to navigate.
Is it in the general direction we need to head? Then let's start making our way that way.
Are we getting late enough in the day that ruins could be a good place to make camp?
It's still reasonably early. Like it's probably a place that you would take lunch.
Short rest. All right, I will go up front with Clax and start leading the way towards the ruin.
Okay. You continue. Where did it go?
I would make note of all three of those on the map I'm creating.
Okay. Very good. This would be, so sort of, you know what you're walking into, so I'm going to allow a new stealth check as everybody gauges where they are and is getting familiar with the territory.
Used up all my good rolls.
That's not the worst.
Holy.
All right, with disadvantage, a 16.
Yeah. You also have all these things you guys can do to modify people's rolls. I don't know. Just saying. Use
Hey,
up all
that's
your
fair.
resources.
I'll make mine a little better and add a +5 to it and make it a 9. Why not?
Knowing it's a disadvantage, I probably would have guided Clax, which isn't the most helpful use.
You
of
can
it.
guide Flint after the fact. I don't mind.
Then I'll guide Flint.
Sure.
Okay.
So it is a 12, I think. 3, 8, yeah, 12.
Okay. Still not. I mean, we're not
Yeah.
at draw to levels here, but
Nobody's at levels.
nobody's at draw to levels. Drawda rolled a 29 on the first stealth roll that I made them roll. You feel that this is maybe as good as it's going to get in the stealth game, and you start to come closer to the ruins. How would you approach this? Are you obviously you're keeping an eye out for sort of basic threats, but how close do you think your curiosity would take you in general as you start to see sort of like a ruined stone structure that has, I think, I suppose I should probably explain it before I ask you how close you get. You see a structure that has a sort of a few hinges that are like stone hinges that are sort of making up the perimeter of it. And in the center of this, you see a kind of domed stone building that has a few cracks and wear in it, and has the shape of a sort of compass at the top of it. It has, like, it is sort of casting a long shadow down in your direction as you're approaching it. And as you're starting to get a little closer, you're maybe like 30 feet out at this point, you see the faint sort of shape of different drawings or hieroglyphs that are upon the stone, but this place has also been overgrown with moss. Now it's in a clearing, and so there's no trees in sort of like a good 60-foot radius of this space, which is very odd compared to the rest of the forest. But but nature has still sort of started to grow over it in the form of vines and moss and whatnot. So what is your sort of approach, as you're not able to discern any details within it yet, but as you're just getting closer?
First question. As we're traveling through this, do we get the sense that this is similar to the like difficulty of the Savannah Islands, or do we think we're going to be able to rest tonight?
You'll be able to rest. It's not that kind of treacherous area.
Cool. Then I would find traps.
Okay. Put that in here. I'm reading this because this is like one of those spells that seems like it should be very useful, and yet I never ever see it.
I don't know if I've ever read it before.
I don't know the location of traps, but I do get a general sense of the danger.
What you observe as I Google the words define trap D&D, there is an inherent natural magic about this place. And I think like in a very brief sort of moment of sort of your eyes meeting Flint's and trying to suss out what that means, you would understand that this is not part of anything man-made, and that it is unlikely to be related to Muhtal at all. The magic that you're sensing is sort of the land, and the sort of, as you cast this trap, you get the impression that there are, without revealing exactly what anything is, you get the impression that there's some sort of spiritual something maybe watching over this place, or some sort of like ancient protections that could be on it.
Guys, I think this place might be special.
There's what kind of way?
In a natural, I don't know. There's magic here, but it doesn't feel hostile.
Do you think, I feel like a number of times now when we've come across these sort of old structures or temples or whatever, they've kind of had something to do with the stars? Do you think, I think hinges were like a star thing. It might be worth glancing at. Doesn't sound like we sense anything terribly hostile.
Getting closer, because I am at least confident in my safety for the moment. Are there any what look like might have been runes or symbols that are familiar to me, or that look like some of the things like the markings on Neptus or things we've seen in the past?
Give me an appropriate skill check for how, like, what angle of insight you're looking into. Are you looking for the religious angle, the arcana angle? Are you just trying to look for like investigation? I think this would not be a perception, because that perception would tell you that there are symbols, but I don't know that you would be able to decipher them per se.
Yeah, I think I'm terrible at all of it. I think I would just be looking for the symbols and then highlighting them to my party, because I know I don't have history of this land and I don't have the same arcana knowledge that the rest of the party does. So I would just be looking for the signs.
Okay, we'll go ahead and roll perception then.
I rolled investigation because I assume that's what you were about to ask.
Yes, investigation. I think it's also fine.
Well, my perception is
Would be
9
a little
more
higher.
than that, so
Okay. So the nature, I'll give you this, regardless of whether it's perception or investigation, is that what you observe is something that you know that there's something here. You see that there are symbols that are covered in moss and dirt and this and that. And I think what you also perceive is Clax, who's probably wondering what any of this has to do with Muhtal. And so I think like what you know is if you can sort of convince the party to sit down and digest this place, there's much to be discovered. But at a glance, you're like, it's like, all right, well, we need to unpack this.
does I think there's something here?
Like what something?
I'm not sure yet. There's certainly a power about this place, and I think it might be. I mean, it looks quite old. I think we could learn some things here if we spent some time looking at it.
Which time are we talking about?
The size and scope of this structure, you haven't really gone inside yet, which is its own, like, who knows what's in there. But you're imagining that, like, you could give it I think it sort of depends on the amount of time you want. If you want to spend an hour here, you can get a sort of maybe a basic understanding of what this place is. If you wanted to spend the night here, you could really delve into it.
Are we sure we're not disturbing it, though, if we decide to stay here?
I don't think a place like this exists to be hidden in the woods. I don't go killing all the plants or anything, but I think as long as we're not causing a bunch of damage, I think we're welcome here.
Because I want you to be able to choose this without this being a factor. At some point in this conversation, Drada reappears. You don't have
That
to.
was literally gonna be my question. If we want to wait for him here.
Yeah, and we'll get into a debrief of what Drada got into when Jacob is back, but there's nothing of urgency, and so you know that you could camp out here if you wanted to without losing pace with Drada. But you're like, hey, Drada, hey, what's up?
I mean, I feel like we should at least go inside. And just, if, maybe if we do a cursory glance and it's things we're not interested in, we leave, but we should at least try and understand at a high level what this place is.
Do these glyphs look at all like the glyphs on the tablet that I had been exposed to?
If you just want to give it I'd say you're asking for an Arcana check or a religion check.
Flip a coin. Let's go Arcana. Oh.
What is, man, intelligent clacks this session.
Yeah.
Don't get used to it.
I think like as eager as Mouse is to get into this, her nerves of knowing that like maybe it's not the number one choice may have kept her from understanding what's here at a first glance. And I think there's something that as you sort of look at this for the first time that you do see these amongst these worn hieroglyphs, that there are these like pock marks in the stone that you've previously associated as being sort of stars that would connect to each other. None of them have any like stones socketed into them, but there are like these almost uniform holes in the stone that you've seen before.
Do I have any? Is my shoulder itching at all? Burning?
No kind of reaction.
I'm just going to keep an eye out for any of that. But all right, guys, here's the deal. I'm not opposed. It gives us a chance to kind of maybe take lunch, collect our thoughts, take a little bit of a break. Drata, find out what the hell happened to you earlier.
I have a story to tell you.
Does Drata look
Let's-
exhausted, tired, beat up in any way?
No.
That's good.
He's a doppelganger. Kill him.
Oh my god, please.
He would annihilate you. Probably.
Oh, yeah. I'd be, like I said, pincushion. I'm just a pincushion.
I mean, Drata would take out one of us, and then
I
we
think he's
do.
referencing me. Like, I don't think it'd be much of a battle. His mobility, I'd never be able to get close, and he
Okay.
gets 15 attacks a turn.
Well, Mouse, you seem to have gotten permission to stick around for at least a little bit. Give me I would say again, give me now that you've perceived that this is sort of here, give me sort of Arcana or Religion if you're trying to suss out knowledge that you could discern, or give me a straight Wisdom if you're trying to remember something that maybe Olive has taught you.
When I see Mouse start to focus more on the structure and everything ahead of us, I will do a bardic inspiration for. I'll give her a little inspiring moment for this roll as soon as I find it. It's on my thing. Where is it? There it is. Bardic inspiration. You get a D8.
Sorry, I should see. Let me correct myself. It's that would have been history for Olive. History for Olive, Arcana or Religion for Mouse, Sparrow Den stuff.
Banking on Olive.
Okay. Do you
Yeah,
want to use that inspiration?
Plus 8.
Yes, I absolutely
Yeah.
do.
Or D8. Yeah, plus 8 would be way too bad.
So I don't know if you've rolled a wheel or woe today. If you want to take
Ooh,
that into
I
account.
did roll wheel. I will wheel myself as well.
Okay. Flash of genius. Wheel. Bardic inspiration. Natural 20. 8 million. Okay.
21.
Jesus. You got a 6
Could
and
have
an 8.
guided myself too if we wanted to get real crazy.
Hold on, guys. Let me think. Let me cast a spell on myself. Can you cast a spell on me? I want
Doing me.
later. I'm going to do the math on what the max roll this party can do is.
My
Um,
god.
Probably
Very
like
beginning of the campaign when
35
we all
or
take
40.
classes.
Yeah.
I'm
Ridiculous.
like, we got guidance and bardic inspiration, a wheel, and
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think thinking back on Olive's various teachings, you posit over. Let me pull up a note document. You posit over something that she said when you were having a little bit of a flashback scene with her and Mouse. She told you, we sort of returned to that scene a long time ago, where she said, and this is a conversation that starts to go in the direction of her talking about her own learning, like who her mentor was. But she's talking about this constellation that had once been on Clax's back, and she says, "Oh, my mentor Sundance never told me much about it before he passed on to his next life." And then this vision sort of fades into another vision where she starts to talk about her mentor. You ask a question about like who is Sundance, and she says, "Well, he was the best of us. Never quite figured out where he went. I don't know that that many people will believe me. In fact, many people have rejected this altogether. So I'm going to let you in on a little secret. I saw Sundance fly his own island. Yeah. There was a little... There used to be this little... She sort of walks you over to the edge of Sparrowden and reveals this sort of what almost looks like it just looks like the edge of the island, but as she's sort of indicating to it and says, this land used to extend maybe a good 20 more meters. But Sundance had this idea to split it off and float it somewhere new. And she looks up into the stars, and you come back to the vision of you come back into the temple, and you see a hieroglyph of sorts that almost seems like it prophesizes that. It looks like a person riding a chunk of stone. And what you can discern by looking at it is that and you're sort of wiping away moss as you're trying to put this story together. You see that over the course of the story being told in stone, that the island rises and rises and rises until it's with the stars. The island almost becomes its own star. And you can tell that this is not a story of Sparrowden rising from anything, because it was already above the clouds before it started floating. And you sort of like hear the sound of your of Olive's voice sort of finishing the story, as she says, some say that he wasn't the first, and that there may be more land up in the stars. But the council doesn't believe that. And I think over the course of Mouse's life, it's like, even if you were curious about that, it never sounded plausible, or like nobody would ever give you the time of day. But she says it like it's a memory that her mentor took an island to the stars to go find other islands that are in the stars. And you see, as you wiping away the hieroglyphs, you sort of see something that almost hints towards that. But it's late, so I want to actually call it there. You can think on that. There's much more to interact with here, should you want to. Drada can tell the story of what has happened in the forest so far. And we'll come back next week without Art. I'm sorry.
I know. Wait.
Or maybe
I might be able to make it.
Oh,
I'll
that's
be
right.
home. I'll be
Oh,
home.
that's right. We talked
but
about that. That's right.
Yeah, I gotta rig up something
Okay.
to work.
If it's just your phone, it's fine. I can roll dice for you.
Might be that, but let's not manifest that.
All right. It's not going to happen. But thanks for playing, though.
How exciting, big lord dump.